This is the ASICS Trabuco Max 5 and this is the New Balance Hierro V9, two of the most popular max stack trail running shoes on the market. However, there's at least 5 key differences between them, some of them small, some of them that make a significant difference, whether you're using them from long distance trail running, for hiking, or just for general use on the trails. So when we look at the ASICS, first of all, we've got 40 mils of cushioning in the rear foot, 35 in the forefoot, giving you a 5 mil difference in height from the back to the front of the shoe. So a relatively low drop overall, and that gives you a nice even distribution of pressure across your foot. Whereas in the New Balance, we've got a 4 mil drop, so just 1 mil less, but we've got different amount of cushioning, with 42 mils in the rear foot and 38 in the forefoot. So that's 3 mils more in the forefoot, and that makes a big difference to the amount of protection and feel underneath your foot, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But when we look at the midsole itself, we've got New Balance's classic Fresh Foam X cushioning that we see in the running line, on the road, and in the trail line. And that's a really soft, comfortable feel underfoot. Not as soft and as squishy as what we see in some of the road shoes, a little bit more dense in terms of the makeup of the cushioning. So it's still that classic fresh foam feel in terms of comfort, but it's just a little bit stiffer to give you a little bit more stability on the trails. In contrast to that, we've got the FF Blast Plus cushioning in the Trabuco Max 5. Now that feels completely different. It's not as soft, not as pillow-like feel as what we get in the New Balance, so it's a little bit firmer and a little bit more rigid than what we saw in the Trabuco Max 4. So a stiffer feel underfoot in the Trabuco Max 5. Now they both have a very stiff forefoot, so those of you who need extra protection in there, it's worth noting that you have lots of stiffness with a mild rocker, so that gives you lots of protection if you've got issues around the big toe joint or sensitivity around the ball of the foot. And as we move underneath the shoe, we've got the ASICSGRIP in the Trabuco Max 5 and we've got Vibram Megagrip in the New Balance. It has 4.5mm lugs versus the 4mm lugs that we get in the ASICS, and that does make a difference. So when we're looking at wet rock, wet gravel and deeper mud, you get better grip not only from the slightly deeper lugs in the New Balance. We also know that Vibram has the market leading grip when it comes to those wetter surfaces underfoot. ASICSGRIP still has tremendous traction underneath your foot, but it's just not as sticky as what we get in the Vibram, and it's got slightly shallower lugs overall. So something to keep in mind depending on the terrain that you plan on using these shoes on. And as we move up on top of the shoes, we've got a relatively wide toe box in both shoes. However, it's a slightly lower volume in the ASICS, so those of you with a larger forefoot, something to take note of. They both got tremendous lockdown in the midfoot, both have gusseted tongues, very thin on the ASICS. So if you're someone who experiences bite on the front of the ankle, something to note about the ASICS, whereas you've got plenty of padding on the New Balance, which helps facilitate that lockdown as well. Plenty of padding around the heel counters, but slightly deeper on the New Balance for those of you that find you get heel slippage. Something to take note of. When it comes to the stability features in these shoes, both of them are extremely wide shoes on the base, and that means it increases the amount of contact that you have with the ground, inherently making the shoe more stable. Now we do have more sole flare on the outer aspect, so the lateral aspect of the forefoot on the ASICS. That means that it keeps you nice and stable as you go to push off, giving you that broader feel underneath your foot. We've got larger sidewalls on the New Balance, on the heel, on the outside and the inside, where it's a bit more of a streamlined feel on the ASICS. So which one's more stable? Well, the stiffer feel underfoot in the ASICS, the broader base in the forefoot with a little bit more sole flare, makes it feel a bit more stable underfoot despite being a max stack shoe in the ASICS. The softer feel in the New Balance and less sole flare in the forefoot makes it feel just a little bit of a higher platform, therefore it's a little bit less stable we found when we're changing direction, turning corners, especially when we're going downhill at speed. So they're both relatively stable shoes overall despite the amount of cushioning that you get underfoot. So it's just something to keep in mind, a very subtle difference when it comes to stability in the ASICS. So what are the best use cases for these shoes? So we've got a great lockdown and fit in these shoes when you're changing direction, going downhill at speed, no issues there. If you want to use them as a hiking shoe first of all rather than a running shoe, well then we feel like it's a more comfort focused feel in the New Balance if you want that softer feel for long days on your feet. If you prefer a stiffer feel underfoot for hiking longer distances, then the ASICS is an excellent option. But when it comes to trail running, if you're looking for a comfort focused shoe that you don't mind being too heavy, that's a little bit softer underfoot and you're not too worried about stability, well then this is where the New Balance thrives. If you want a stiffer Slightly more responsive feel underfoot in our opinion, well then the Trabuco Max 5 is a slightly better option if you want that snappier feel underneath the foot. It can do long distance and medium distance running. Both of them are quite chunky shoes overall, so if you're looking for a more nimble option, that's not it, and you might consider the ASICS Trabuco 14, which we have a review of, or if you're keen on New Balance, they've just released the New Balance Rebel Trail, which we have a review of, which is a really technical shoe, but a lot less stack underfoot, and a really interesting watch if you want to find out more. Finally, if you watch the channel but you haven't subscribed, please do, as it allows us to make more independent reviews for you. Thank you very much for watching.